But let's start with a big one that started the day at the Khalifa International Stadium, the Dutch and the Americans, the sole Concacaf representative in the round of 16, and they started fairly well. Then the Dutch sat back, they waited, they executed their game plan, they got their goal, they got another one in added time of the first half. The Americans try to claw back, but end up losing by 3-1. So the Americans, they bow out of this tournament. And after the match, there were some spicy takes, as you might expect. Perhaps, though, none more spicy than ESPN FC's Hercules Gomez saying that Louis van Gaal ate Greg Berhalter's lunch. Oliver Platt, we know you are a Netherlands truther. Was Herc right on this?
Lunch guy as well. Loves lunch.
I love lunch. It's true. This is really my wheelhouse.
Best meal of the day.
I actually do think he's right. I've said about the Netherlands in this tournament that they didn't impress me in the group stage, and I haven't changed my opinion on that. And I don't think they play kind of the attractive football, the dominant football that you're used to seeing from Dutch teams of the past. But I have to say, in this game, I thought Louis van Gaal got it absolutely spot on. His game plan, I think, was perfect. And there were things about the way the Dutch play that I think matched up well against the United States. But you have to give them credit for a game plan that worked to perfection. I thought, the way they defended, they're like man-to-man in defense, quite deep, make it very difficult for you to build and play. The United States struggled to find solutions to that. And the problem I have with the US sometimes is that they want to score the perfect goal. Like, I think in that game, there was room for them to be a bit more direct, create a bit more chaos, not necessarily need to string 6 or 7 passes together in a move just to get to the penalty area. They seemed unwilling to do that. And then the other big difference maker is the US fullbacks. Like, I think they're good going forwards, but individually, I don't think they're great defenders, and I don't think they get well protected either by the players in front of them. And you saw the Dutch wingbacks, Dumfries and Blins, just absolutely run riot against those players involved in every single goal. Dumfries is the man of the match with the goal and 2 assists. There were areas where I thought he really targeted the Americans' weaknesses, and the Dutch executed pretty much a spot-on game plan.
Hercules Gomez is partially right here, because can we just say that Christian Pulisic took Greg Berhalter's brown paper bag lunch and handed it to Louis van Gaal? Yeah. If he scores in the second minute, wide open, that ball has to be in the back of the net. It's a completely different game, right? Because the Dutch are going to have to come out and play a little bit more. Not being able to capitalize on that early chance played into Van Gaal's hands. We know how his teams play. We know that they have some top world-class defenders in this team. We know that they're really good in wide areas. And we know that they're a team that just doesn't want to come out and play. You score that early goal, everything could have turned out in a much different way. I thought the Americans played well. Ollie, you're right. The weaknesses, the fullbacks very aggressive going forward. That left side defensively, the Fulham duo of Ream and Robinson, an absolute nightmare defensively. I call that from day number 1. Canada exposed that side of the United States when they played. This is a flawed United States team. Their midfield is excellent. I think they're going to be great going forward. McKennie not being able to play 90 minutes, it's a big problem for this team because he's such a good player for them. So yeah, I don't think Greg Berhalter necessarily made the right changes. I don't think he adapted his game plan when they went down quite quick enough. But Pulisic scores that goal. I think it's a completely different game.
I agree with you, Wheels. Netherlands and Van Gaal, the game plan today was perfection. I would say that they were tactically superior. One of the things I noticed that the Netherlands did, Gakpo and Depay, they pressed inwards. They said, you know what, Ream, Zimmerman, let you two be the guys to hurt us today. You had Ream, I counted 5 times in the first half trying to dribble forward and pick out a pass, and he's playing an orange shirt, like a Netherlands shirt, instead of trying to go deep. So in that area, tactically sound, he said, look, we are not going to have a boxing match today. We're going to have a chess match. And Netherlands were better at it. Now, this U.S. team has won me over in the terms of that their never say die attitude. But I think they showed today that they're just a bit young and naive, especially when it comes to goals. The first one being just Adams ran his heart out the whole tournament, but just not being in the penalty spot to basically clear a ball when it gets cut back. And then obviously ball watching with Robinson and Dest on both of the goals. These areas, they just have to clean up. But we knew with this U.S. side that it was a a learning tournament in a way, and this is a young squad. But these are areas they have to clean up if they're trying to be super competitive for 2026.
They played well. They did.
They did. And not only did Louis van Gaal eat Greg Berhalter's lunch, he looked better doing it in the beautiful, handsome, dapper suit, the Berhalter's t-shirt. Ugh,
actually, you're right. You're spot
Thank
on
you.
there.
Thank you very much. Speaking
By the
of
way,
absolutely right.
Edgar Davids on the bench with the shades and the suit.
Did he move?
Man,
Was he awake?
So good. So good.
Yes.
He's been like that for the past 4 games. He doesn't move.
They won and they looked good doing it, did the Dutch.
Yes.
Kristian Jack, he was there at RIN to see it with his own 2 eyes. Let's check in with KJ and get his thoughts on the match.
Same end stadium and the same minutes. Alphonso Davies was able to score in the second minute here at Khalifa International Stadium. Christian Pulisic was not. As he side-footed the ball towards goal, he took a glance at the linesman and probably thought he was offside. It was the United States' biggest chance at 0-0. The Dutch would take the lead 8 minutes later, and after that, it was pretty much game over. A game that would end 3-1 for the Netherlands, but in the end, it was pretty convincing. The Americans will be very disappointed knowing that that was their moment, that was their chance. The Dutch are a very difficult team to break down, and you have to get ahead of them. Once they get the lead, they're going to be a tough out here at Qatar. Virgil van Dijk, Nathan Ake, and in particular Jurrien Timber are tremendous defenders, but this was a day for Denzel Dumfries. 2 assists on the right-hand side, a goal line clearance, and then a clinical finish for the third. The rightful man of the match. The Americans will be disappointed in the way that they defended in the game. Certainly coming into this match, they were the only team to not concede a goal from open play. They conceded 3, and it cost them. The Dutch will be difficult to break down in the next game, whoever they play. This is not a team that you get excited about the way that they used to be. This is not total football. They're dressed in orange, albeit a different shade. It doesn't bring back memories of Cruyff and Neeskens and others, but they are efficient. Many other teams have played this way, including them in 2010, and got to a World Cup final. I'm not quite sure they're true contenders, but they could certainly go that way. It takes 4 knockout rounds to make it to get in the end, to get your hands on the World Cup trophy. The Dutch will try and do that. As for the United States and all of Concacaf, those 4 rounds, a massive uphill task going forward. In the history of this wonderful competition, Concacaf teams have still only won 4 knockout games. Cuba did it in 1938, but took a replay over Romania. Mexico did it as hosts in 1986 over Bulgaria. The US did it in 2002, but against the CONCACAF team in Mexico. And then Costa Rica did it against statistically the worst team left in the last 16, Greece. Not exactly fantastic ringing endorsements. The challenge will now be for the United States, much like Canada and Mexico, to figure out how they're going to be better in 2026. They're already there, they're hosts, and they've got to figure out how they can get competitive games. In the end, this was a competitive game, but it was convincing as the Dutch move on to the quarterfinals.
That's right. The Dutch are through and they will take on Argentina. We will discuss a little bit more of that quarterfinal match shortly. But first, back to the Netherlands proper, their squad, and whether or not they have exceeded or met expectations. The 2 wins in the group stage, the draw with Ecuador, they get the job done against the Americans. Jordan, it seems like they have played almost exactly like the supporters would expect them to. But has your opinion changed on them in any way with this result over the United States?
It hasn't really changed. I thought they would get out the group. I thought they would do well. But I think today what I saw is how tactically sound they were. We've always known that, but just these little details that Van Gaal changed within his squad, I'm thinking that, yeah, they could do well in this tournament. Now, the team that they draw in Argentina, I just think the X factor within Messi, it's going to be a tall order. But yeah, they've gotten me to believe that they're I can never say exciting side, but at least a good side that could go far.
Ask Ollie about this. Ollie, you've crapped all over the Dutch the entire tournament. What say you now?
No, I haven't said that they're not a competitive side. I said they're a side that I don't enjoy watching, and I don't think they play attractive football, as KJ just mentioned there, anything like the Dutch teams of the past. I think we've said repeatedly they could easily be semi-finalists with the pathway they've got. We'll get to that Not just you, Wheels. Me and Jordan said it as well.
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
Definitely did not say it. Roll the tape.
Check the tape. Please check the tape. We've said it repeatedly. We'll get to that Argentina game, which I think they absolutely have a chance in. But they are difficult to beat. There's no question about that. And I don't think that's ever been in dispute. To answer the question about changing my opinion, the one thing that I think gives me more belief in them than maybe we had in the group stage is Memphis Depay's return. Like, he's made a big difference, and I think is integral to the way they play. And you could certainly see more football, at least, on the counter attack in today's game. So that's a big difference maker. But I think they are what they are. I don't think they're a team that plays great football. I don't think they'll really excite you. They are difficult to beat. Ultimately, I imagine they'll fall just a little bit short of winning the tournament, but they could be in the last four quite easily.
Really, really quickly, Memphis almost gave away 2 goals. Actually, he did lose the ball that led to the American goal and gave up what I don't trust Memphis Depay. I trust Cody Gakpo. I trust Bergwijn. I trust other players that they play in attack. I'm not sure he's the solution. The big change that Van Gaal has made since the start of the tournament, you have De Ligt and De Vrij on the bench. 2 top center backs, but putting Timber on the right side of that back line has added some speed, had some guile. He's the right fit alongside Van Dijk and Ake. That one little alteration, that one little change has kind of changed the way that they're built. And I think it makes them a much more dynamic side, at least playing out of the back as well. So the subtle change, I still think that this team has what it takes to go to make it to a World Cup semifinal. Absolutely.
To be fair, being a team that's difficult to play against and break down is a pretty good quality to have, especially when it gets into knockout football. Gareth, right back to you. Final word on the Americans. They were the last Concacaf team standing. They did not top the qualifying group, but with this performance and everything we've seen the past really 2 years, would you say right now the Americans are the best team in Concacaf?
They're probably the best team in CONCACAF, but I'm not going to base it on what I saw in this World Cup. I'm going to base it upon a Nations League win, a Gold Cup win. There's been sustained excellence from this emerging program. In this World Cup, I mean, they drew Wales, who were very poor, and they beat Iran by this much, like in a passionate game where Iran looked completely out of gas. I thought the U.S. were better than I expected in this tournament, and I do think that the team to beat in CONCACAF. Were they head and heels better than the other CONCACAF side at this tournament? Perhaps because they got out of their group, but to me it's negligible. None of them ended up going beyond the round of 16, so it's a little bit disappointing for all 4 CONCACAF teams, to be honest with you. But based on the work before, they're probably the best side in this region.
Yeah, I agree with Wheels. Marginally better. I think obviously going the furthest, but having this young team that there's a lot of faces, nearly all of them that you'll probably see in 2026. I think they're the best team right now.
Do you know what though, Jordan? Like, they don't have a superstar like Davies and David. Like, there are a lot of really good players in that team, but Canada has those superstar. I'm sorry, Pulisic's a very good player. He's not a superstar for me. Like, who is the superstar in that team? This is the 3 midfield players, but they're more workhorses, right?
I think the edge too is just their team playing at the players that they have on their team playing at higher levels. Like, I think over time when you're getting that competition, it sharpens you for these tournaments. Like, it just brings a different beast out in a player.
Ollie, last word to you.
I think they're the best team in CONCACAF right now, but what I will say, and people don't like saying this because it sounds like you're devaluing the results that they get, but so much of a World Cup is dependent on the draw. It's a massive stroke of luck that plays a big pathway in the knockout stage, not just the group stage. It has a major impact, and theirs, I think, was relatively good, certainly compared to Canada's.